Are you sick of the same old disability stereotypes? We were too, so we did something about it. Welcome to That Was Unexpected, the Disability Lifestyle podcast for everyone. Brought to you by Young Care and hosted by me, Lisa Cox. Join our amazing guests as we delve into topics that don't often hit the headlines. So let's do this. Prepare for the unexpected. If you're low vision like me or have other accessibility requirements, check out our show notes. Before we get started, we'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of land on which we record. We pay respects to the elders, past, present and emerging.
Okay, thanks very much for joining us today, Justin, to tell us about hidden disabilities and the Sunflower Scheme. Now we're going to talk about hidden disabilities. Now you and I know exactly what that is, and I have a ton of them, but for our listeners who perhaps need a refresher, or those who are going, what is this? Can you tell us what a hidden disability is, or perhaps other names that are used for that?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for inviting me on and for the opportunity to share our sunflower story. It's an incredible journey, and we've got a long way to go, and we just love talking about it in any way we can because stories really affect change. So in answer to your question, it's a tricky one because I think where we're coming from with hidden disability, and it's an interchangeable term for non-obvious, non-apparent, non-visible, it's really just trying to define a scenario where somebody may approach another person and not know that they have a disability. So if you imagine someone approaching in a wheelchair, it's fairly obvious that that wheelchair signifies that somebody may have a disability. Whereas, if you don't have a hearing aid or a walking stick or a wheelchair or assistive technology, then it's less apparent and much harder for someone to identify that you have a disability and therefore maybe have some requirements. And in that category, it's quite broad. So we also support people with medical conditions and disorders and disabilities. So it's a broader spectrum than specifically disability, but we've kind of categorized into 9 different groups really to help us understand the breadth and depth of non-visible disability or hidden disability. And inclusive in that would be neurodevelopmental, mental health, physical, cognitive, respiratory, illness and recoveries, rare diseases, sensory and neurological. And within those categories, we've currently listed over 920 different non-visible disabilities. So please don't ask me to list them. Just visit our website if you want to see.
Wow, 920. That's a lot. And for our listeners, I suppose, also to remember that it's nuanced. So someone can have an invisible disability, say a brain injury, but their mode of transport or their way of getting around can be visible, so they can have a wheelchair as well. I know, shout out to Tim, one of our early Young Care residents. He no longer is, but his beautiful sister Carol as well. Can you tell us how many people in Australia have invisible disabilities?
Excellent question. And statistics are varying depending on how the measurement's done. But I understand that from the Australian Bureau of Statistics, 1 in 5 Australians have a disability, and it's currently estimated that about 80 to 85% of those are non-visible. So that equates to somewhere around 15 to 17% of the population with a non-visible disability, which also means if you think further from that, the degree of separation, first degree separation between somebody with a non-visible disability is probably highly likely that every one of us is engaging with or encountering someone with a non-visible disability, and to a large proportion, we're unaware of it.
That's right. So people can go, I don't know anyone with a disability or have no one in my life, but their co-worker or their friend or somebody like that, or the people they pass in the street every day can be disabled. Just because they're not in a wheelchair doesn't mean they're not passing people every day that don't have a disability that just isn't visible. So of that, say 80%, I've seen that in your socials, great socials, by the way, of that 80%, how many are required and how many are congenital or something like that?
That is an excellent question, and you've got me there. I haven't researched that, and there's probably a very good reason for it, which I might address a little bit later on. But ultimately, the Sunflower program is about shifting the conversation away from the specifics of disability towards the needs and requirements of the individual. So it's not a question that I've needed to ask.
And no, that's fine. I don't want to get bogged down too much in the details, but I'm just trying to give some of our listeners who perhaps don't have that much of an idea about what invisible disabilities are, trying to give them some sort of an idea around what an invisible disability is. Can you give us some sort of an idea, some examples
Sure.
of cerebral palsy or brain injury, or what an invisible
Absolutely. Yeah, so, well, some of the stats would help clarify that, I think. So there's 880,000 people with who have a mental or behavioural disorder as their main disabling condition, 30,000 deaf Aslan users, 357,000 blind or have low vision, 700,000 live with a brain injury, and 3.6 million are living with chronic pain. So they're just a few numbers that kind of talk to the variety of different disabilities.
It's interesting. People are happy to use the word I have chronic pain, or I have anxiety, or I have something, but reluctant to use the word I have a disability. That seems to be something that society still has to overcome, but that's another conversation for another day. Anyway, now the Sunflower Lanyards, I really want to get onto this because I love this program. I've been following your awesome work for a little while, or for a long while actually, and was first introduced to Sandy through my friend Natalie, also down in Melbourne. Now, can you tell us all about the wonderful work that Sunflower does, how they started, what they do? Tell us all about it.
I'd love to. Thank you. So I guess from the disability, and you've spoken a lot on your podcast about the social model of disability, and that's where we're coming from as well, in terms of the disability being created by the environment around and the people around, rather than focusing on the disability. So I think what happens is each individual with a disability, particularly a hidden one, will have their own set of challenges or requirements or needs on any given day at any given time that may change, to ensure that they can access and be included in whatever activity or environment they're engaging in. So whether it's a venue or an event, or simply just going about their daily life. So challenges from the people, the sunflower wearers that we've surveyed, include things like obviously not being able to stand for long periods of time. I mean, that 3.6 million chronic pain probably talks strongly to that. Environmental challenges around sensory overload, so neurodiversity groups who might struggle with lights, sound, smells in certain environments, communicating, wayfinding, signage, understanding where to go to get to places, and accessing public toilets and public facilities, and paying for things. Those they're the sort of challenges that can be, I guess, enhanced by the environment that someone with a hidden disability finds himself in. And as a result, I'll just take a step back here, if I may.
Sure.
In 2016. Gatwick Airport in the UK, having thousands or millions of people come through their doors and transition through a very complex environment, were the first to sort of say, their diversity inclusion team said, how do we know if someone has a disability and able to support them if we can't see it, if we can't acknowledge it? So they went to their marketing agency back then and said, how do we do this? How can we support people to become seen, to become visible with their disability? And the marketing agency, the head of the agency, happens to have a daughter who's neurodiverse and had a bit of an understanding of that complexity travelling through airports. So they worked together and consulted the community there to come up with this idea of using an icon, much like the wheelchair access icon, an icon to demonstrate and display that you might have a non-visible disability to somebody who wasn't able to see that. And so they came up with this range of products that seem to be very effective. And here in Australia and New Zealand, we've brought out these products, or just some of them, which includes a lanyard, a sunflower printed lanyard, which I'm holding up now for those who are listening. And it's really just a green lanyard with yellow sunflowers all over it. And you can put a card at the end of it. We make a little card that we put in a plastic wallet that's a hidden disability card, also green with sunflower on it. Very bright, colourful. It's a positive, joyful imagery. It's universal. Sunflowers grow everywhere pretty much. And, you know, it's not specific to any cultural community or gender or anything. It's just meant to be a happy, positive icon for helping people identify. We also have a silicone wristband for, you know, athletes or young active people, and a lapel pin that pins onto, you know, for the sort of corporate environment, I guess, where you're not wearing a lanyard or you already have a lanyard. So an opportunity to pin it onto a lanyard. So they're the sort of the core products. And when somebody chooses to wear that, they will be seen, they will be visible. So that's sort of the foundation of the sunflower, but there's a lot more to talk about.
I think that's fantastic. I have those products at home, and I've spoken before about having the quote unquote advantage of having 14 kilos of metal and rubber sitting under me in the form of a wheelchair, so that when I go to, say, an airport or anywhere else, I don't have to justify why I'm getting lost or forgetting something or whatever the case may be because of my brain injury. I have that luxury, again, inverted commas, but people with invisible disabilities who don't have something like a wheelchair or whatever they have, do perhaps need something like the sunflower lanyard to help them through airports and things like that. So you mentioned Gatwick Airport. They're obviously doing a fantastic job, but how does Australia fare, do you think, with regard to equity and hidden disabilities and things like that?
Yeah, there's always a lot more work to do. What we're trying to do with a very positive outlook is encourage progress towards more inclusive society. There is no perfection in this field. And I think, you know, it's blatantly obvious to anybody who's particularly in a wheelchair. If you're using a wheelchair to access the community, there are community-created barriers, and there always will be because of the heritage listed retrofitted buildings that try to become more accessible, but they're bound by, you know, by regulations. There's you know, there's so many physical barriers that are very obvious, but there's also all of these other equally as confronting and challenging barriers that are more sort of societal, that are attitudinal or sociological, and these are the ones that we think we can help work with. So I think in terms of the Sunflower program, our opportunity here to contribute here in Australia and New Zealand is to ensure that as many people as possible are aware that there are hidden disabilities out there, that as many people as possible can actually see people with a hidden disability and feel enabled and empowered to offer support. And I'll talk to that in a minute because that's the other part of our program. But also to better understand how we can make what used to be called accommodations, but I believe is probably more importantly called improvements to our environments, our facilities, our organisations, to ensure that they are more accessible and inclusive for people with disabilities. So in Australia, we've done a lot of work over the last 4 or 5 years since we brought it out to to encourage organisations that are customer facing to join the program, and we support them to train their staff to become aware of what a hidden disability might be, which is what I talked about earlier, what the Sunflower program is, which I've just mentioned, and then what you can do. And the what you can do bit is the most important bit for us, because that's about, as I said, enabling and empowering a staff member at whether it's an entertainment facility like the MCG, or whether it's an airline or airport, a public transport network, or a service provider, a bank or a retail outlet, or anywhere where there's customer service, empowering those staff to say, I see you're wearing a sunflower, can I help you? What can I do to make this experience for you as inclusive as possible? And it's that question that starts the conversation, and the conversation then leads to progress. Not perfection, but it leads to progress for that organisation to make a step forward to becoming more inclusive. And the more conversations we inspire, the more sunflower seeds we plant, the more people are aware of it, and the more people start that conversation, and it normalises disability in those environments, and it allows and enables improvements for that organisation.
Oh, that's
I hope that answered the question.
It does. It absolutely does. I love practical solutions. As a once non-disabled person, that just be inclusive. Yes, that's 100% true, but how? What? How? So direct and specific examples of, if you're wearing the sunflower lanyard, go up and ask how. That's a great example. Someone who's perhaps not wearing a sunflower lanyard, if you're somebody who wants to be an ally and perhaps help someone with an invisible or non-apparent disability, how can you best help people with non-apparent disabilities?
Yeah, so thank you. That's the other part to our program, and the most important part for us is that we train organisations to, with the support of a training module that they upload to their learning management system and share out with their staff networks, to understand the Sunflower program. And then we ask organisations to pin a supporter badge on their staff, or a supporter lanyard, which I'm holding up now. And that's a white lanyard with a green circle and a yellow sunflower on it. So it's about bringing the white products together with the green products. So once the staff member has been trained, and it's really just broad awareness about disability and non-visible in particular, once they've been trained, they should then feel more encouraged, more supported, more empowered to make that step forward and say, how can I help you? And connect with someone who's wearing the green product. So it's just about connecting the green and the white. An ally previously may have had this terrible barrier of wanting to support, because most of us do want to help somebody who needs help, or support somebody who needs support. But we don't know how. We're too afraid of getting it wrong. We're too afraid of, approaching someone and, encroaching on their personal space. We don't know that somebody might need a little extra time or some particular accommodation. But if you are wearing a sunflower lanyard, you're signalling to somebody, and it's choice and control. It's optional. You can take it off and put it in your pocket, pull it out when you need it. But it's a way of signalling that you're available to be approached and not asked if you need anything. So it really is a beautiful way of connecting two people together, and two people together can do a lot of good. They can navigate an environment that is not inclusive and accessible to some extent. They can start conversations about how we could improve it in the future, but they can also together help spread the word and make broader change, a societal change. So we're doing it sort of one organisation at a time, one person at a time, but combining those organisations and those networks and the staff, and we're reaching hundreds and hundreds of thousands of Australians. And if we follow the UK model, we're a couple of years behind them, we should be able to get to a critical mass awareness point where somebody might go to a train station. The staff at the train station might say, how can I help you? They might say, I might need support getting onto the train. The gap is, large, and it's it builds anxiety, the door closing. Can you support me on? So they support them on. But then once they're on, there are no staff. So where we're trying to get to with this program is that everybody in that carriage is aware of the sunflower, and the person wearing the sunflower may be offered support by other members of the community should they choose to wear it. And that's our ultimate goal, is that everybody helps everybody, which you would think is common courtesy and we should all be doing. But unfortunately, we just need regular reminders.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely brilliant, because it takes away that awkwardness, the awkward conversations between people with disabilities and allies who want to do the right thing but aren't sure where to start. I've been on both sides of the coin, so see it from both perspectives. Now, you've mentioned some awesome brands that are getting on board, brands, businesses. Please give them a shout out, because we want to use this platform to help give all of these awesome people who are doing great things some recognition.
Right. Well, thank you for that opportunity too, because often, it's difficult to mention brands. I'm always terrified of doing this because I don't want to leave anyone out. So I could talk for the next hour about the amazing organisations that have done incredible work. But maybe if I just pick some from different sectors so that I can give a snapshot. But all the major airports across the country are joined and do it all in their own different way. So some of them, they'll purchase a lot of the sunflower products and have them available at the info desk. Some of them you have to actually go into an office to get them, or email in and request it. But they're all doing their best to try and ensure that you can access the sunflower product and use it throughout the airport. Now, that being said, we have to be mindful of the fact that there are a lot of different stakeholders in an airport. There's baggage handlers, border security, several airlines. There's Australian Federal Police, there's Uber, taxi, train. There's so many different operators that they don't, and we're trying to make sure that all of them are members. Many of those are, but it's going to take a little bit of time to get to that point. So airports are one. In the as I mentioned before, the MCG, so environments like that, Spark Arena, pretty much all of the ASM global network of stadiums. So, Suncorp Stadium, if I can point to your location, members, and they're doing it really well. What else have we got? We've got a lot of sporting organisations. So the Australian Open, the Grand Prix, these kind of environments are really important because they're quite complex and they're a lot of people in a condensed space, moving through facilities that may not have been built with accessibility and universal design inclusion. We've also got a lot of hospitals in the health sector joining the program and rolling it out and training their staff at the moment, plus cultural institutes, so galleries, museums. I'm sure I've left out a lot. So retail. We've got the Westfield, Stocklands and Vicinity Group shopping centres, so the info desks there at all of those major shopping centres. That doesn't mean that every retail outlet within there is sunflower friendly yet, but with the support of podcasts like this, we can get the word out there, and that's why we're so appreciative of this opportunity to talk about it.
I'm glad there's a long list, and I hope it grows even longer in the future. And those will be on your website if people want the full list, I'm sure, or can get in touch with you. Now, this is a question that you and I probably both know the answer to, but for our listeners who perhaps want a little bit of education or aren't sure, can you explain to us the difference between an intellectual disability and an invisible or a hidden disability?
I guess.
Because I don't want to get fall into the bad, ranking disabilities or anything like that. We're not trying to do that here, but just it's all nuanced and trying to explain the difference to our listeners.
Yeah. Again, going back to the social model, I think it's really important to focus on, the disability is, it's a condition that restricts a person's mental, sensory or mobility functions. So intellectual disability is included in the non-visible disabilities because for some individuals, it's the person who's interacting with someone with an intellectual disability may not be aware until that information is shared, and disability may be caused by accident, trauma, genetics, disease. There are so many different ways, but the most important bit is that the measurable functional impairment in which the interactions with various barriers happen is what hinders full and effective participation. So it's the barriers that we focus on, and it's about the Sunflower is about not defining disabilities and subdefining them and labeling and it's not so much about that as it is about what can we do to remove the barriers for this individual at this particular time. So I work for Bailey House, which is an organisation in Bayside, Melbourne, that has for over 70 years now supported adults with intellectual disabilities. And we have 250 NDIS clients at the moment who access our day programs and accommodation services. And many of those people who are also involved in the Sunflower program as part of their skill learning development for the packing and fulfilling the product, many of those people wear the Sunflower or choose to wear it sometimes because their disability, although they have an intellectual disability, which we're aware of, many people in the community aren't. So when they go shopping or on a train or whatever, they might want to identify as maybe needing support, but many of them don't. So I think it's just about the individual's choice of whether they want to be a Sunflower wearer.
Okay. Now, going back to what you said before about sunflowers in the workplace, loving this, but my question is about whether or not having sunflowers for allies and people with disabilities in the workplace, in your opinion, do you think it can help to reduce workplace discrimination, unconscious bias, and all of those sorts of things if we have this open flow of communication? People aren't making assumptions that, they're just lazy, they're not doing work. They know they've got maybe a hidden disability or something like that.
Yeah, really good question. And this old-fashioned word of disclosure is often used in the workplace, and it's very difficult to get support that you need to flourish in a working environment without disclosing information about your disability. What we're trying to do to some extent is shift that conversation to sharing rather than disclosing, because that has a negative connotation. Sharing whatever you think is relevant for you to do the best you can in your job. Now, that's not disability relevant, in my opinion. That should be for every individual employee in every employment environment. So if the first thing your boss asks you when you start a job, what do you need to be the best you can be in this workplace? It may point to some of the challenges that are created from, barriers to your disability, or it may just be particular things that you like or, encourage you to do better at, intrinsic rewards, those sort of things. Or, it may be something around the physical environment. So what we're trying to do is, I guess, remove some of those physical, attitudinal, communication and social barriers that are created in the workplace by having, first of all, creating a culture of sharing. So if we normalise and bring the Sunflower in and we regularly talk about disability and requirements and needs of individuals, we start to ensure that everybody in the disability, in the employment environment, understands that there may or may not be disability around them and that they're aware of it. So awareness is the most important thing. The culture of sharing enables people to feel confident to share if they choose to. And by sharing their story, they may find that there's a lot more understanding and awareness being built around them, more tolerance and inclusion, and from that will lead to breaking down these barriers. So let me just clarify that with some stories if I have time. The
Okay.
stories, I think, are the best way to share. So I went and did a presentation once about the Sunflower program to a major airline, and I was sitting next to a chap in the audience, and he was just chatting with me, and then I got up and did my presentation. And then they said, now we've got a guest speaker from our organisation. And this chap stood up, went to the front and said, with the Sunflower program embedded in here, I feel like this organisation is now progressing towards a more inclusive environment. These are my words, not exactly his. It was a long time ago. But I want to share with you for the first time that, and this is a senior executive as well, that I have a disability, that I have no peripheral vision, and I may have passed you in the hallway and ignored you, and you may think I'm rude, but it's not the case. I'm actually vision impaired. And you could see in the audience people's, the aha moment. And I think that's a beautiful outcome and benefit from this program that helps not only create that culture of sharing, but it creates it in a way that enables somebody of that level to say, it's okay for me to share and it's okay for you to have judged previously, but let's work together to remove these barriers in the future.
That's a really wonderful story, and thank you for sharing that. You've absolutely always got time on this podcast just to share all the stories you want. Now, what is your relationship to disability? Is there a background with disability that you have?
That's an interesting question too, because I got into this because I was a professional marketer, and I was marketing things that I didn't feel comfortable with, so it wasn't aligned with my set of values. And I have 3 children, and I was coming home from work, and they would ask, what do you do? And I wasn't proud of it. I wasn't comfortable with it. So I sought to do something that was a bit more closer to, aligned to my values, and went to work for a terrific organisation who supported adults with intellectual disabilities, and spent 5 years doing that, and then joined another organisation, Bailey House, and have spent the last 5 years there. And just before COVID, somebody reached out to the UK and said, we see the Sunflower program, it's terrific. Can we use these products for our clients if they choose to wear them? And they said in the UK, this marketing agency that was working with Gatwick said, we're looking to expand this globally. Would you like to distribute it? So, instantly I threw my hand in the air and said, yeah, I'll do this, because I see the huge value in making a real societal change here through, a very simple, very effective tool. I love the simplicity of the message and the tool. And, being surrounded by people with disabilities and the challenges they face in my working environment, it was really important for me to do everything we could that was being done globally here in Australia to support the people in our community. And so that's how I got into it. But in saying that, we all have connections to disability in some way or another. And those people that are probably listening to this that don't identify as having a disability are probably wishing that they live long enough to have one. Because ultimately, if we all age together, at the rate we are at the moment with good, good medicine, I think, to keep us going, we'll probably develop what is considered a disability. So at some stage, we're going to need some sort of support or requirements. So I think it's pretty much everybody. But, we just talk to the 15 to 17% of the population at the moment.
That's right.
I hope that answered that question.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So we've heard about professional Justin and the awesome work you're doing at Sunflower, but what about personal Justin, you and your family, and what do you get up to on the weekends? And tell us about that, Justin.
Yeah, I mean, this program is all consuming at the moment because it's so exciting, because we're constantly monitoring our social media and connecting with the community and building a network of people who are sharing great stories. So I spend quite a bit of time driving this, and I want to get it done as quickly as possible because, like I said, once we get that massive cultural awareness, then we can make that societal change. But there is downtime. My children are now grown up, and my youngest is 18, and so there's a bit more free time to spend with my beautiful wife, who's my better three quarters, and we get out to the country quite a bit, and I love the outdoors. We cycle and ride and climb mountains and do things like that, I think life's pretty good when you get to this age. You get to choose the people you want to be with and things you want to do, and I'm thoroughly enjoying it.
Now, tell us, where can people find Sunflower and buy all the merch and get their business involved, their organisation involved, and all the team? Get it all.
So we strongly encourage organisations to, when they join the program, to buy the Sunflower products to give away to their customers, because it works for their customer service delivery. It works for their marketing to acquire new customers. It works for their HR, for building employee networks. It just works for organisations really well. So we encourage them to buy and give away Sunflower products. And the ultimate agenda there is that we believe people with disabilities should get this product for free.
Yep.
So go into, Westfield info desk and ask for one. Go to the airport and ask for one and get it. However, there is also the opportunity to purchase a product from our website. We have an e-commerce website, so you can log on to hdsunflower.com and you'll find all the products available there, and you can purchase them. And that also provides an opportunity, as I said, for Bailey House clients to pack and fulfill the product and learn new skills about, counting, sorting, labelling, packing, that may contribute to their workplace readiness skill programs. And the clients really enjoy that work. And I think there's a little video on our website about that story, which is a beautiful story. And it's part of the reason I get out of bed every morning, because we just love to build, more and more opportunities for clients. So if you purchase from us, it's a good thing. If you get it for free from an organisation that's a member, that's a great thing. Either way, do that, and then give us some feedback on social media, Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn, and we love to share those stories with our members. So constructive feedback as well as some positive ones. But what we are trying to do is really shine a sunflower positive light on all the positive stories, because I think that affects that progressive change more effectively than the complaints. So we do highlight the positive stories to encourage organisations like public transport networks to do a little bit better each year.
Definitely. You can be an individual or a big business. I knew a parent with an autistic child who was taking an overseas holiday and just wanted to get a lanyard for her child so that when they had a meltdown in the middle of the airport and everywhere else, they had a bit of a signpost, I suppose, that this is why. And so they bought a lanyard and a heap of other merch. But then also there's the businesses who want to get involved and give it out to all of their employees. So you can do it for a whole bunch of reasons. Now, this is something we ask all of our guests. And what is something unexpected, since the podcast is called That Was Unexpected? What's something unexpected about you, your work, your life? Take your pick.
I'm shocked at how lucky I am to be doing this. I think I've heard presentations where people have talked about what would you call it? The rot almost of male, pale and stale. And I love the fact that unexpectedly I've fallen into becoming a middle-aged white privileged male, that my children constantly remind me I am in that category, and boomer, and can actually do something good, can affect change, and can rally my peers who also came out of that sort of privileged white middle class environment, and be an ally for change for, a community that is probably overlooked for way too long and last in line from all of the diversity, equity, inclusion groups that have come before, that have forged the way. And I think, I think it's just an incredible thing that unexpectedly happened in my life, that I now can, look my kids in the face and be very proud of the work that I do and have achieved something. So I'm really grateful for that opportunity. And every day we get stories of success that are sent to us, where my family and I have never gone to the Australian Open. This year we did because we felt confident because the sunflower was there. Stories like that, life-changing, in small ways. People saying, I wasn't confident catching public transport, which meant I couldn't get to health services. I couldn't get to my workplace. So I was looking for jobs working from home. But now I've changed my whole attitude in my life because of the Sunflower program offering that kind of support. And, when you do that for one individual, that's a good day. When you do it for hundreds, it's a great life.
That's awesome. Justin, thank you so much for being on the podcast today and telling us all about yourself and the wonderful work being done at Sunflower.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. And I love this podcast. I've listened to so many of them and I'm learning so much. And I think, as long as we're all sharing and we're all learning, we're going to get somewhere.
That's right. We're stronger together. Cheers, Justin.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to That Was Unexpected. If you liked what you heard and you want to hear more, then hit subscribe wherever you get your fix. Have any questions or topics that you'd love for us to tackle? Great! Email podcast@youngcare.com.au. We can't wait to hear from you. Check out our show notes for transcripts, video recordings, and to find out more about our guests, plus the useful resources they share. You can reach us on Facebook, Instagram, X, and LinkedIn at Young Care Oz. Let's not forget, an inclusive community is everyone's business. So let's keep working together to break down barriers and smash some stereotypes.